This is CBC Here and Now.
Married couples are being separated by the healthcare system.
It just rips the heart right out of us to see what he's going through.
One family is calling for change. Coming up on Here and Now.
We've got some snow on the way tonight. That will change to rain as some warmer temperatures move in tomorrow.
The cost of gas and diesel hits just a little bit harder when you're 2 hours away from your nearest specialist appointment.
Instead of going for their doctor's appointments to just be sick.
I'm Garrett Barry, and I'll bring you the story from Bay to Spare, coming up on Here and Now.
Good evening and welcome to Here and Now. I'm Anthony Germain.
And I'm Carolyn Stokes. Well, the family of an elderly couple is speaking out tonight after the province's healthcare system separated the seniors who wish to stay together in their remaining years. Their son wants better legislation to stop this from happening, but the health minister says that's not the solution. Here and Now's Mark Quinn reports.
John and Myrtle Legg celebrated John's 94th birthday last fall. They've been married for more than 70 years, raised 7 children here. But now they're living in separate facilities because they require different levels of care.
It just rips the heart right out of us to see what he's going through.
Both were living at Meadow Creek's retirement home in Paradise until a COVID outbreak in January. Both have recovered from the virus. Myrtle is now back at the retirement home where she receives level 2 care, while John's health has deteriorated. So he's here at the Health Sciences Centre waiting for level 3 care at a provincial facility.
It must be just torture for my dad to be lying there wondering if he's ever going to see Mom again or if he's ever going to get in a place where he's a little bit more comfortable.
Ron Legg is calling on the province to adopt legislation like Nova Scotia's, which keeps married couples together in long-term care, even if they require different levels of care.
We're really hoping that can happen here. It's not just my mom and dad, it's the many mom and dads that are in the province waiting for this to happen, and there's just no legislation to ensure it.
The opposition health critic agrees. He's advocating for legislation that would help the Legg family and others.
Because this particular story, this is the straw that broke my back, and I've heard so many stories. But to have such an elderly couple, married 73 years, who are separated, who may not get together again, guys, we got to do something here.
But the health minister says adopting legislation won't solve the problem.
I think it'd be very difficult to legislate something we couldn't deliver on. I think the issue at the moment is around beds and physical space.
He says the system is forced to make difficult choices because of a shortage of long-term care beds.
If you put someone who needs level 1 or level 2 care into a facility providing level 3 or 4, it does stop somebody else getting a bed.
Haggie says the province is trying to make it easier for people to age at home or in their communities. And he says that will reduce the demand on hospitals and long-term care facilities. Mark Quinn, CBC News, St. John's.
The RNC's Major Crime Unit is treating the death of an 82-year-old woman as suspicious. Paramedics responded to a call in the Mitchell Court area of St. John's yesterday morning. The woman was pronounced dead at the scene. Police say the death was sudden, though the cause is not yet known. According to the RNC, there is no risk to public safety, but officers will remain in the area while they investigate. Police are also looking for help from witnesses or anyone who has dash cam or CCTV footage of the area between 9:30 and 12:30 last night. And that area includes Stab Court, Anderson Avenue, Hoyles Road, and Freshwater Road between Elizabeth and Empire Avenue.
Well, a major change when it comes to getting tested for COVID-19. The province is halting PCR tests for many people and only allowing testing for specific groups now. Now, before this change, anyone with symptoms and no known contacts qualified for testing. Beginning now, the tests will be limited to symptomatic people who are at increased risk for severe disease, those who live or work in congregate settings like long-term care homes, or who are essential to keeping the healthcare system running. It also includes those who are 60 years and over, children under 2 years of age, and First Nations, Inuit or Métis people who are 18 years or older, as well as frontline healthcare workers who have direct contact with patients. Now, if you don't fall into one of those groups, you're not eligible for PCR testing if you develop symptoms. Now, you can only use a rapid antigen test if you have them. Now, in that case, you must have 2 negative tests administered 72 hours apart before leaving isolation. 1 negative test is not enough. Now, if you do not have rapid tests and you are not eligible for PCR testing, you will need to stay at home until your symptoms have improved for at least 24 hours and you have no fever. Well, Newfoundland and Labrador is opening up an office in Poland to assist Ukrainian refugees to make their way to this province. And it's the first province to do this. Here now's Peter Cowan is following the story from our newsroom. So Peter, how is this going to work?
Well, Anthony, there are 4 civil servants who are there now setting up an office in the Polish capital of Warsaw. The province wants them to help encourage Ukrainian refugees to settle in this province. An estimated 3 million people have fled Ukraine, with more than half of them going to Poland. Canada has said it will issue an unlimited number of visas for Ukrainians, but they're not ready to issue them just yet. Immigration is a federal responsibility. Newfoundland and Labrador can't issue the visas or decide who can or can't come here. But the Premier said it's important to make sure that Newfoundland and Labrador is doing what it can to make it easier for refugees to pick this province.
The point of first contact is an incredibly important one with respect to refugees and where they end up settling. So we want to make sure that people who have been displaced from their own homes in Ukraine know that Newfoundland and Labrador is a viable, sustainable option for them to come with their families. And we want to be the ones to help shepherd them through the process.
Now, the government highlighted today that several of the people on the ground are themselves immigrants from Eastern Europe. But the NDP was raising questions about what happens when people start coming here. Is the province ready to provide housing and education?
Where are people going to be housed? It's a crisis here as it is. If the families are sponsoring them and taking them in, what supports are going to be provided to the families? If they're going into the school system, where are they going and what resources will be put there? Those are the questions I guess I've been after throughout most of my career as NLTA president and as the education critic. My fear is that we'll bring them in, they'll be dumped into the system, it'll fall out of the media, it'll be forgotten about, and schools in this case will be left to try to struggle to meet the needs.
Now, politicians said today there's already been an outpouring of support with people offering up spare rooms, houses, and cabins. They're working on a way to organize that for when refugees do start arriving. Carolyn?
Thank you, Peter. That's here now's Peter Cowan reporting live. Well, the 4 Atlantic premiers plan to discuss the possibility of keeping daylight saving time permanently. They'll gather in Halifax this weekend for the first face-to-face meeting of Atlantic premiers in 2 years. New Brunswick's premier says ending the twice-yearly clock change is on the agenda. Most of Saskatchewan and all of the Yukon already follow permanent daylight time. Ontario and BC have passed legislation to do it as long as their neighboring jurisdictions also make that change. Meanwhile, the U.S. Senate passed a bill earlier this week that would make daylight time permanent. That bill has yet to become law.
Well, there's certainly been lots of chatter about that, so I thought we'd break down some of the numbers just to see if we did see permanent daylight saving time. The earliest sunrise the latest sunrise that we would see for Happy Valley Goose Bay, late December, early January, would be about 9:16 in the morning, and then for St. John's that would be about 8:48. Now it's on the back end of that we see the earliest sunsets, and that happens in the beginning of December. So we're looking at about 4:43 for Happy Valley Goose Bay and 5:09 for St. John's, and again that's early December. Now we're into March. We're seeing those sunsets in and around 7:10, which means a beautiful evening, and you can see that right now. Current conditions out there in St. John's, 2 degrees under mostly clear skies for the most part. We are seeing some high cloud, but overall a beautiful evening. That's thanks to a ridge of high pressure. We do have some weather moving in as we head through the night tonight, some snow and rain. I'll have the full forecast coming up.
After a forced hiatus of 2 years, St. Patrick's Day is back in downtown St. John's.
Well, it's one of the most important days of the year, really, for a bartender. Especially important for money, due to the fact that most of us haven't worked a lot over the last couple of years. It's been rough.
And coming up, we'll take a peek into a couple of bars.
Stay tuned for that. Now, meanwhile, a small drop in the price of gas today, down about 4 cents a litre. The maximum price for self-serve on the Avalon is now $1.88.6. That's small, though, compared to the big jumps we've seen as far as relief goes. Now, the rising prices of fuel, heat, and food are hitting everybody in this province, but in rural areas where long commutes are just a fact of life, the pain is more severe. Here now's Garrett Barry brings us to Bay d'Espoir tonight, where doctors work and appointments are sometimes 180 kilometers away.
Another day, another $85.
It's a bit outreach, I'd say, for that.
The good news, this money is making money.
For work, I commute from here to Hermitage to Harbour Breton.
The bad news, because gas has jumped, that commute is getting more expensive.
It costs me about $50 now, with the price of fuel now. Before that, I probably could do it for $25, $30.
And the margins for his contracting company are getting thinner and thinner.
I really don't know, because it's impossible to try and save, right? And if you put it on the customer's not going to get you to do the job.
Now, just imagine the pain from these pumps for everyone else.
My children aren't getting the food that they really deserve because we're not able to afford it because the money's going into the gas. And if the money's not going to gas, the prices of the food is going up because of the gas.
He and his pregnant wife are making frequent trips to the hospital in Grand Falls, Windsor, about once a week, 182 kilometers each way.
Now it costs us maybe, I'd say round trip about $100.
Where does all that money come from?
For me personally, thin air.
With 2 kids at home and another on the way, his exasperation is growing.
We've had to cut back on our groceries. What we used to be able to get for $300 or $400, we now have less than that to put into groceries, and the amount of money that we're putting into groceries doesn't get us as much. So quite literally, my children are going hungry, and it's difficult.
Up and down this bay, the stories are similar. Teachers, parents, tradespeople, business owners, all dealing with this sudden spike in their wallet. And the questions they face now are similar too. What has to stop for these important trips to continue?
Everyone's cutting back where they can.
In the summertime, my wife enjoys a swim, so I usually take her down to the falls in Gander Bay. And I mean, if the gas doesn't improve, those trips down to Gander Bay are going to become less.
For this commuter, it's the same story. Trips to Grand Falls, Windsor for medical appointments, pain in the wallet.
The cost to go over Grand Falls, even just, say, 2 years ago, round trip cost you $20-30 in a car similar to this size. Whereas now, that cost is probably doubled.
At the brand new community food bank, they're getting ready.
One of the things that we discussed last night at our board meeting actually is we're expecting to have an influx of clients come out of the increase in the gasoline prices.
It's a road that King and his family are expecting to walk.
It's looking very much on the horizon that we will need to go to a food bank, and how long those food banks are going to last with food. If everybody's starting to feel this way, it's going to be pretty tough.
And for others, the choices are getting harder.
Medical care, especially, the concerning piece is that people are having to choose whether or not they can afford to go to appointments.
Even with a little relief today, a few cents per liter, for many in this community, the math just doesn't add up. And the options are few and far between.
There's not much really us as citizens can do other than be as cost efficient as possible. The big thing comes down to the government on what they can do for us citizens.
Garrett Barry, CBC News in Bay d'Espoir.
Well, now to Labrador, where a women's shelter in Happy Valley Goose Bay says it's becoming increasingly difficult to find housing in the town. Lilly House provides emergency shelter for women and children fleeing violence. But the executive director says they are seldom able to find those families a permanent place to live. Here now's Ariana Kelland has that story.
Lilly House shelters women and children from abuse, but this room, Jessica Keating hopes, will keep women safe from other harms too, like the elements outside.
I'm really happy to say that we've helped a multitude of women that we normally wouldn't be able to intake before that room. We've accepted them. We've had women come in that were really, really, really cold.
It's called a harm reduction room, a safe space for any woman, even if they're intoxicated or high. Keating says you just need to look outside to see how great the need is for safe housing.
I'm from the area, and I'm going to say within the last number of years, I would never have imagined that we would see the things that we see. We see groups of people going through the trails. We see people sleeping on a bench.
Keating says Lilly House helps women with their applications for housing, but seldom can she find them a permanent home.
It's a big challenge to find an apartment that's affordable for anybody who's working. But if you are a woman who's raising a young family, in a lot of cases too, you'll see that, or I guess that we've noticed that the finances were controlled by the partner. So they're, trying to get the money, they're trying to figure out how to manage the money, and then to find an apartment, it's really overwhelming.
In early February, there were 45 applications in Labrador for a one-bedroom unit with the Newfoundland and Labrador Housing Corporation. But there were just 3 units available, demand far outweighing supply.
It's a pretty difficult role.
The town of Happy Valley Goose Bay has tried to secure federal funding to help alleviate the problem. Twice, staff applied for the federal government's rapid housing program, and twice were denied.
It is a challenge. If you're, homelessness doesn't mean you could be couch surfing, you could be living with family and stuff like that. So it's hard to capture that. But I mean, we do have a huge problem, and unfortunately, our project didn't make the CMHC cut.
Back at Lilly House, Jessica Keating says they work to find room for any woman or child in need. No one, she says, should be stuck in the cold. Ariana Kelland, CBC News, St. John's.
The 9 support workers at a homeless shelter in St. John's remain on strike. The workers provide services at Lilly House, a 14-bed housing unit for homeless youth run by Choices for Youth. They're pushing for a collective agreement and better pay. A few dozen people, some of them homeless youth and former residents of the Lilly, came out to show their support, as did the province's largest union. In a statement today, Choices for Youth says it's pleased to be back at the bargaining table with NAPE, negotiating a collective agreement. But NAPE's president tells a different story.
I just went down to the Alt Hotel, which we've had booked since Monday. A couple of workers were there. I tried the door. Guess what, Mr. Pollard? It's locked. We are prepared to talk, as I said, at 12:01 on Monday night, when these courageous workers withdrew their service. We were prepared to talk at 12:02. We have been doing it for 9 months. 9 months.
Well, the Lilly is staffed around the clock, and workers say they're not paid the same as their community counterparts. In the meantime, management has stepped in to staff the shelter.
Well, for the bar business, today is normally the busiest day of the year, but during the pandemic, St. Patrick's Day celebrations in downtown St. John's have been on hold.
Yeah, and with the easing of restrictions, many returned to pubs today to enjoy a green pint and some live local music. And we checked in on a few bars to see how the 2022 festivities are going.
I gotta say, it's really good to be out here at Shamrock City in downtown St. John's. Say hello, Shamrock City.
And the gas goes
a little louder, come on.
Dream the dream. Lovely.
I'm here to enjoy myself here at Shamrock City. It's great to be out there for 2 years, long years. It's been too long. You know, Paddy Day is my tradition every year. I come out and enjoy the music. I loved it.
Sing me better with you. I met my love and the gasworks wall. Dream the dream by the old canal.
Making it for 3 years of last St. Patrick's Day, so we're having 3 times the party. Is that right? Oh, come on, is that right?
It's
one of the most important days of the year, really, for a bartender, especially like around this time of year. It's kind of your break between the end of the slow winter season, and we're going to start picking up now for everything else. Like I said, especially important for money due to the fact that most of us haven't worked a lot over the last couple of years. It's been rough.
Putting tattoos on, apparently. We're having a drink here now today at the Broadswicks Club. We used to come out for like past 5 years for sure, and then the past 2 obviously not. But.
And what was it like the last 2 years not being able to come out at all?
It sucked. I worked a lot.
You see all with it. God, what a lovely social crowd. Thank you so much to all those antisocial people for staying home.
This weather update is brought to you by the Healthcare Foundation Home Lottery. Order tickets now at hcfhomelottery.ca.
No doubt a few people on the go today. Not only is it St. Patrick's Patrick's Day today, but it's also a full moon tonight.
Yeah, what a combination. Yes, it is a full moon tonight. In fact, March's full moon is a worm moon. Let's take a look at what that means. So earthworms generally start to appear in the month of March in other parts of the country, not really here, but we are going to see, or that's why it's called a worm moon, because the soil starts to warm up in the spring, and that's when they appear. So we are sitting under a ridge of high pressure right now, which means there's the potential that we could see the moon rise as the days get, or as the day gets a little bit darker overnight tonight, but the clouds are going to be on the increase, and that's because the next weather maker is moving in. You can see that cloud cover already on the west coast, parts of the south coast as well, and that will just continue as we head through the overnight tonight. Now, temperatures right now are sitting in the single digits, 2 degrees for Corner Brook, 0 in Stephenville, or rather in Port aux Basques, and -1 in Stephenville. Your temperatures are actually going to start to warm up as we head through the overnight tonight. And there you go. You're going to sit somewhere between 1 and 2 degrees. So it's going to start as snow, but then as those temperatures start to climb up, it's going to transition through to rain. Most of central and eastern Newfoundland, you're looking at your temperatures hovering near or just below 0 tonight. Those winds will be out of the southwest, hence that warm up, and they'll be gusting somewhere between 30 to 50 kilometers per hour. Up across Labrador, another chilly night tonight, not nearly as chilly as it was last night in Lab City. We went down to -30. You're looking at an overnight low tonight at -13 with that potential for some flurries moving through. So here's a look at what's going to happen as we head through tonight. Snow to start. Temperatures, like I said, are going to start to warm up. You could see that between 1 and 2 degrees as we even get through to just before midnight. That's when we should start to see that transition through to rain. Most of the northern peninsula, southeastern Labrador, and central Newfoundland will see some snow tonight. Generally not a whole lot in the way of accumulation, less than 5 centimeters, but that transition through to rain will happen as we get into the early morning hours, and that's when we'll really start to see those temperatures jump up. Certainly for the eastern areas of the island. This should fall mainly as rain. We may see a few flakes to start, but overall temperatures will be quite warm tomorrow, anywhere from 6 to 8 degrees through the day. Northern Peninsula, the snow will end for you by mid-morning, and then you're looking at the risk of some freezing drizzle as the day goes on. Quiet for a good chunk of Labrador, and eventually that moves off and a ridge of high pressure moves in and teeing up a pretty beautiful Saturday. So as far as snowfall accumulations go, like I said, 2, maybe 5 centimeters at the most, but the higher elevations for the west coast where there are snowfall warnings, Corner Brook, Gros Morne, higher elevations could see upwards of about 15 centimeters of snow, and that will fall by the time we get into Friday morning. So temperatures tomorrow, this is where you'll be sitting, anywhere from 3 to 8 degrees through the afternoon. Corner Brook, you'll see your temperature early on in the day, and then it will drop as the day goes on with those winds easing. They'll be out of the southwest, 30 to 50 kilometers per hour for the eastern half of the island. Eventually those showers will end through the day as well. As far as Labrador goes, temperatures will stay mild again, relatively speaking, about -5 for Lab City tomorrow. The showers, or rather the flurries for southeastern Labrador will continue at least through the morning. You may see that end as some freezing drizzle as well, but overall a pretty nice day up across Makkovik. You're seeing a high near -9, but lots of sunshine. So that's a look at the forecast. We'll look ahead when I come back.
Well, now to central Newfoundland, where a Pentecostal church has been destroyed by fire. The church is located in the community of Wings Point, just north of Gander. Firefighters from 5 different departments in the region responded to the blaze yesterday morning, but the structure could not be saved. No one was injured in the fire, but the loss is a blow to the community. Thomas Gillingham represents the local service district in the area and joins me now. Thanks so much for being here.
You're welcome.
Well, what was your reaction when you found out the church was on fire?
Well, shocked to start with. It's part of the institution at the Gander Bay North. Gander Bay North made up of 2 prominent religions here, Pentecostal and Anglican, and pretty well evenly divided probably. So there's a fairly large contingency of Pentecostal people. And it's a rather large structure, that church. and probably in the 4th or 5th largest structure in our communities. And to lose something of that size, and it's been there quite a while, it's just devastating to the community, really.
Can you tell us about the damage? Is there anything left at all?
Oh, practically not. The old building had just collapsed into the basement. A little bit of superstructure out around the ramps and that was to it, but basically no, the building is completely destroyed.
What does it mean to the entire area to lose this church?
Well, to lose any structure like this in an area where, especially we're just trying to come off of COVID after a couple of years where religious institutions, like everything else, have been restricted in what they could do. And it is my understanding that in the not too far back, they did some major renovations to the church to bring it up to their standards and everything. And it's quite a loss to lose something of that size. And it's sort of situated, like Wings Point is sort of in the middle of Gander Bay North. And it's where we have our school. The Anglican Church is just within a half, 3/4 kilometer of the Pentecostal one. The fire hall is right between the two of them. So it's in our playgrounds, and everything is sort of located right in that area. That's the sort of the art of the area where we operating for the community. So I'm sure that it's a big loss to the Pentecostal people in this area.
And this is so fresh. I'm sure that a lot of people are still processing this loss. But do you have any sense yet about what will happen now? Have you heard anyone talk about fundraising to help rebuild the church?
No, I haven't heard anything at all. I've just in that regard. I'm sure they'll find a way to rebuild. I mean, they've been part of the Gander Bay community for a long, long time. And I'm sure they'll make plans in the not too distant future as to what they will do. But as of now, I haven't heard anything.
Mm-hmm. Well, Thomas Gillingham, thank you so much for your time. Really appreciate it.
You're welcome.
Pauline is the first woman ever to report for Land and Sea.
Thanks a lot, Bill. Believe me, I'm happy to be here.
I know I can walk away knowing the show is going to be left in really excellent hands.
For nearly 30 years, she's had the best gig in the business, hosting and producing Land and Sea.
Pauline Thornhill is retiring. A look back at her legendary career just ahead.
Hi everyone, I'm Bill Kelly, and tonight it's my pleasure to introduce to our Land and Sea audience a person already well known to you as a reporter for Here and Now. But tonight, Pauline Thornhill makes her first appearance on Land and Sea, and in so doing, we're breaking a bit of new ground. Pauline is the first woman ever to report for Land and Sea. Now Pauline is back at our editing suite, ready to go with tonight's show. Welcome aboard, Pauline. Glad to have you.
Thanks a lot, Bill. Believe me, I'm happy to be here.
So that's Pauline Thornhill's first show, and next month, believe it or not, it will be her final show. I'm here in Petty Harbour with Pauline. Listen, congratulations, a big decision.
Thank you, and yes, it was a very big decision, actually.
Right. Is it real to you yet?
I know I've made the right decision. I know that now, but it still feels weird. Yeah. So I know there's going to be an adjustment for me for sure. But no, the time is right. I think it's you know I've been there for a while, did my bit, and
your bit.
I'm leaving the show in really, really good hands. So you know I can leave with a clear conscience. Right.
Well, listen, I want to talk a bit about your amazing career because you know in broadcasting in Newfoundland, I think a lot of people think being the host of Land and Sea is the best job in television here.
And they're exactly right.
And
aside from yours,
I think I'm supposed to argue.
Anthony.
I'm supposed to argue with you. But take us back to before Land and Sea a bit. So you started off as a young reporter, right?
Yes, yeah. I came to the CBC in '86 as summer relief, right? As a news reporter with Here Now. Yeah. And that fall, I was lucky enough to get another contract for a year, and that continued on for 6 years. Right. Yeah, and then in '93. I got the Land and Sea job full time.
Right. Now, we kind of forget, the male-dominated business of television, especially in the 70s and 80s, and then in the early 90s, it was kind of, for a young female to get, a premium hosting job. Was there pressure on you?
Only what I put on myself,
yeah.
Because, I was filling huge shoes, right? Prior to me, the two hosts were Bill Kelly and Dave Quinton. And then along comes me, this 27-year-old girl, right? So I was terrified. Yeah. I was terrified. I didn't know how the audience was going to accept me, and it was such a huge television tradition I was inheriting. That show was really successful when I inherited it.
Yeah.
So the thing for me was, we got to keep the show afloat, right?
Yeah.
But luckily, the audience over the years has been very gracious, and they continued to watch. And
very loyal, and very loyal at difficult times too, right? Because the CBC, in its wisdom, made a decision to try to get rid of the show, but it wouldn't go away. And you inherited that legacy part of the show too, right? That here you had a show that was not going to exist, but basically came back by popular demand.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
That's true.
So do you feel like it's almost like an honor to be the host of this
Oh, an honor.
Great show?
An honor, a privilege, a blessing. How many adjectives can I come up with, right? Like how many words? There are no words. People ask me, what's the highlight of your career been? Well, the highlight of my career, without a doubt, was the day I was told I got this job.
Yeah.
Right? It was my dream job then. Mm-hmm. It still is.
Yeah.
It's been more than a privilege. It's been more than a privilege. And the audience, you're right, has been so dedicated and so loyal. We've bounced around in different time slots, and they stayed with us. They found us wherever we were. They stayed with us when COVID shut us down, and we were running repeats and archivals.
And people across the country and around the world pick you up on YouTube and look at past episodes. And it's there's so many Newfoundlanders that I meet. Even Here Now, we'll go into a town and say, "Are you at Land and Sea?" I say, "No, sorry, I'm with Here Now." And, But there's such an attachment to the show, and I wonder. I know you've got thousands of stories, but what's it like pulling into a small place around the bay, even something like Petty Harbour place, and you're going to go on a shoot, and you get welcomed? What's that like?
Well, it's great. It's fabulous. It's win-win, right? Because, we are welcomed. And I know what it's like to be on the other end, because like I said, I was a reporter for 6 years, and you're not always welcome when you're a news reporter, right? But yeah, people like to see Land and Sea coming, and if you can, give them back, put it that way, a positive, a good human interest show that, if you can do a story on a person, they trust you with their story, right? And then you do their show, you tell their story, you share it with the rest of the province or the country, and people like it. Well, it's win-win. It's good all around, you know. Like sometimes it's good to be the messenger. It's not always bad to be the messenger, right?
Yeah, especially if you're the messenger for Land and Sea. So last question for you. What are you going to miss about having the best job in television in Newfoundland and Labrador? What are you really going to miss?
What am I going to miss? Well, I'll definitely miss the people. I mean, I've literally met hundreds and hundreds of people, you know, from being on the road all those years, right? So I'm definitely going to miss the people. I'm going to miss the people I work with. You know, I'm going to miss the crew, the Land and Sea crew. I'm going to miss the coast of Labrador. I mean, how many opportunities am I going to get? How many more times am I going to get up to Nain? You know, without Land and Sea, sort of thing. I mean, just how many things am I going to miss? I guess if I had to pick one, it would have to be the people.
Yeah,
the people.
So you'll be leaving last show next month, and as you mentioned before we started this interview, you're leaving the show in great hands.
Absolutely, absolutely. Jane 80 has contributed to Land and Sea for years. She's helped me out many times over the years, and she will throw herself into this job. She'll throw her heart and soul into it, and she's very good at what she does, and she's good with people. People love her. You know, I know I can walk away knowing the show is going to be left in really excellent hands, and not just with Jane, technically as well.
Right.
We've still got some very dedicated cameramen that, you know, own a piece of that show. Our editor has been there for over 20 years. Sandy Morris is still going to be playing his beautiful music, right? So, you know, I might be moving on, but the Land and Sea is here to stay.
All right. Listen, congratulations.
Thank you.
I know everybody's going to miss you, and it's been great working in the same place with you, even though we didn't get to see each other very often, and all the best in retirement.
Thank you, Anthony. I appreciate it.
Well, now back to tonight's top story. Imagine being married 73 years, and despite your vows to stay together forever, the province's healthcare system forces you to live apart. The family of one such couple wants government to change the law to keep married couples together in long-term care, even if they have different healthcare needs. Here Now's Mark Quinn spoke with Ron Legg. His parents are in their 90s, but now they have no choice but to live apart.
Ron, thank you so much for speaking with CBC today. I really appreciate it. Tell me a little bit about your parents and their past, where they're from and how they grew up.
They met in Gander, Newfoundland, 73 years ago and married and came to St. John's. My father is from Hershey Light in Trinity Bay, and my mom is from Newtown in Bonavista Bay. They settled in St. John's and eventually built a house in Mount Pearl, and that's where they spent the greater part of their life, in Mount Pearl, until just recently. They went into a retirement home because they weren't able to live in their own home anymore.
You mentioned that their situation has changed. So what's changed since they moved into the retirement home together?
Well, when they moved into the retirement home together, initially they were in reasonably good health, but my dad had some mobility issues. And just recently, in January, they both contracted COVID. There was an outbreak at the home, and he eventually got admitted to hospital because his situation worsened. And on January the 14th, he was admitted to the health science, and he did recover from COVID, but unfortunately, because of his condition, he was reassessed while he was there, and it was determined that he just couldn't go back to the Meadow Creek retirement home where he had been. Because the situation had deteriorated significantly. So right now, he's been there for, well, just about 2 months to the day, and he hasn't seen his wife since.
And what would you like for them? What would you like to see happen?
Well, what I would really like to see is my dad placed in a long-term care facility, which is most appropriate for what he needs right now, and for my mom to be able to move in there as well and at least enjoy what years they have left together. He's missing her terribly, she's missing him terribly, and it's resulted in him being very distraught at this point, and his physical condition is starting to deteriorate fast because of his mental state.
And we often hear that the problem is that the people in a couple have different requirements for care. They have different levels of care that they need. Mm-hmm. Is that the situation that your parents are facing?
Well, my dad has been assessed at what they determined to be level 3. My mom is in the high level 2 range. My understanding from speaking to various people in the system is that it can be accommodated when they're that close together. High level 2, level 3, that should not be a problem.
Mm-hmm. And we saw that in Nova Scotia they recently enacted legislation to ensure that couples stay together. Do you hope that could happen here as well?
Well, we're really hoping that can happen here. It's not just my mom and dad, it's the many mom and dads that are in the province waiting for this to happen, and there's just no legislation to ensure it. But Nova Scotia seems to have moved swiftly and done what they have to do to accommodate these people.
And for you to see your parents in this situation, how does it feel to see that?
Well, it's very disturbing to the whole family. Every day we're just wondering and hoping that something is going to happen, that they can be cared for. But it's not the family that is most impacted on this. My parents, you can just imagine what's going through my dad's mind day by day by day. Am I ever going to get out of here? He's in a room with 2 other men, and they're good people, but they're in this little 6x10 enclosure with nothing but a curtain around them. What's going through his mind must be just terrible, because I've seen him cry. I've seen him try to be strong when he can't be, and it just rips the heart right out of us to see what he's going through. But it must be just torture for my dad to be lying there wondering if he's ever going to see Mom again, or if he's ever going to get in a place where he's a little bit more comfortable. So.
And you'd expect, I mean, people work all their lives and they expect to be treated with dignity. And what does it say about our society if we can't do that for the older people?
When you look at people like my dad and many others like him who have contributed to their communities, tried to be good citizens, and did the right thing all their lives, they've never hurt anybody, and they end up in this situation. I don't think the system is treating them fairly when they have to go through this terrible ordeal at this stage in their life when they should be rewarded for what they've put into their society. I think it's important for us as family and as a community to speak for them and to get someone to act instead of just saying the words, do some action. So I'm hoping that someone out there will hear us and at least be sympathetic to the cause of all these people that are just waiting to be processed.
Well, thanks so much for speaking with us today, Ron. I really appreciate it.
You're quite welcome.
Okay, so we're creeping closer and closer to the weekend. What's in store for us weather-wise?
Well, we've got an unsettled start to the weekend, so we'll say tomorrow, Friday, with some rain. But a ridge of high pressure moves in, and that means that it will be a fairly nice Saturday. Let's take a look at what's going to happen. So overnight Friday, that area of low pressure will move off. The showers should end as well. A few flurries still possible along the west coast through central as we get into the early morning hours on Sunday. And then as that ridge of high pressure moves in, things should clear out quite nicely. But we will see some more cloud cover move in as we head into the evening hours, and that's because the next system will move in. But temperatures through the day looking pretty nice. We'll hover near 0 degree above or degree below. Up across Labrador, mild, relatively speaking, again, -4 in Lab City on Saturday and -3 in Happy Valley, Goose Bay, under plenty of sunshine through the day. So as that system starts to move in, we're going to see the snow move in right along with it on Sunday morning. So it will continue to track a little bit further north towards central Labrador, and then we're looking at the potential on Sunday evening to see maybe either ice pellets or some freezing rain. Definitely need to keep an eye on that system. But that will continue to track further north as we head through Sunday. So we're looking at those temperatures, at least to start, somewhere between 0, maybe around 2 or 3 degrees through the afternoon. Up across Labrador, you're looking at your temperatures into the -2 to -4 degree range. And again, that light snow moving in. You'll likely see some accumulation with this one. As we head through Monday, we are going to see a warm up for eastern areas of the island. So it will transition through to rain, but we may see some snow in the evening hours, and that will generally continue as we head into Tuesday as well with some flurries. Temperatures will drop back down near or a couple of degrees below 0 as well. Taking a look at what's happening through central Newfoundland, you're looking at a pretty big warm up on Monday, 8 degrees. So rain, and then again, a drop down below 0. Now for western Newfoundland, you're looking at a temperature around 9 degrees, and then by Tuesday, your afternoon high will sit around -1. So you are still looking at some onshore flurries there. And then for eastern Labrador, once you see your temperatures sitting around the minus single digits, by the time you get into Tuesday, you're going to start to jump up a little bit above 0. Still looking at flurries or light snow though, particularly Sunday and then into Tuesday, which could be some significant snow. And then for western Labrador, you're looking at that significant snow as well. We're talking 15-20 centimeters possible if with the current tracks. Now take a look at this shot. This was St. Patrick's Day sunrise. Alec took this one. I love it. A great shot of the harbor there. Yeah. And the hat. The harbor's in focus though, so that's what you need to pay attention to. Thank you so much to Alec for that shot. And if you have any weather photos that you would like to share with us, send them to nlphotos@cbc.ca.
It's a great light there. It's almost like a twilight.
It's, well, sunrise, so.
Oh, it's a sunrise, okay.
Yeah, there you go.
Nice angle too on the harbor.
Yes. Yeah. That's one of my favorite views right there.
Mm-hmm.
And Ashley, you were joking during the commercial that you would have worn green today in honor of St. Patrick's Day, but you can't because of the green screen.
Yeah, I would completely disappear.
Yeah.
That'd just be a floating head.
Yeah. Which would be kind of funny.
Should be quite funny. Yes, it would.
Well, I hope you have a wonderful St. Patrick's Day out there. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Yeah, have a great night.
Good night.